The two paths of life. God's secret blueprint for success versus ruin. Proverbs. Every single day, from the moment you wake up, you are faced with a series of choices. Some seem small. What will I say in this meeting? How will I respond to that frustrating email? What will I watch, listen to, or think about for the next hour? Others feel monumental. Should I take this job? Should I marry this person? How should I raise my children? How should I raise my children? Our lives are the sum total of these thousands of decisions, stacking up day after day, year after year, like bricks being laid one on top of the other. We spend so much time analyzing the big, life-altering choices, but we rarely stop to consider the fundamental direction, the underlying path upon which all these bricks are being laid. The book of Proverbs, the Bible's great manual for practical living, argues that in the end, there are not thousands of different paths, there are only two. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every thought you entertain is laying a brick on one of two roads. One road leads to a structure of stability, honor, and life. The other leads to a pile of rubble, shame, and ruin. This isn't a new idea. It's an ancient, unwavering truth about the moral fabric of the universe. These are the two paths, the path of wisdom and the path of folly. And this forces us to ask the most important diagnostic question of our lives. Which path am I actually on? Not which path do I think I'm on, or which path do I want to be on, but based on the daily, moment-by-moment evidence of my life, where am I truly headed? Welcome to Biblical Wisdom SP. Today, we are embarking on a journey into the heart of the book of Proverbs to draw a stark, clear contrast between these two paths. Using chapters like Proverbs 10 and 14 as our guide, we will move beyond abstract concepts and look at the concrete, real-world behaviors and outcomes that define the wise and the foolish. And first, we must define our terms. When Proverbs speaks of a fool, it is not talking about a person with a low IQ or a lack of education. You can have 3 PhDs and be a profound fool in God's eyes. You can be a brilliant CEO, a gifted artist, or a celebrated intellectual and be walking the path of folly. A fool, in the biblical sense, is a person whose life is oriented around themselves. Their feelings are their guide, their desires are their God, and their own opinions are their ultimate truth. They despise correction because it threatens the shaky throne of their own ego. Conversely, the wise person is not necessarily the one with the most knowledge. The wise person is someone who has oriented their life around a reality greater than themselves, God and His revealed truth. They understand, as we discussed in a previous study, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. They are humble, teachable, and willing to align their life with God's design for human flourishing. These two core orientations, one toward self, one toward God, create two vastly different ways of living in the world. They affect everything: how we talk, how we work, how we handle money, how we treat others, and how we respond to hardship. Proverbs 14:8 puts it this way: the wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. The wise person understands their path. The fool is self-deceived, stumbling along a road they don't even realize they're on, a road that leads to destruction. So, to answer our great question, which path am I on? We must first learn to recognize the clear, unmistakable signposts of folly. We must be willing to hold up the mirror of Scripture and diagnose the foolish patterns in our own lives. What does the fool's speech sound like? How does the fool approach their work and their finances? What is the defining characteristic of their heart? Let's begin by walking down the dark path to see if we recognize the scenery. If we are to honestly assess which path we are on, we must first be willing to identify the markers of the path of folly. This isn't about judging others, it's about sober self-examination. The book of Proverbs gives us a brutally honest field guide to the fool, not so we can point fingers, but so we can see the warning signs in our own hearts and on our own paths. Let's look at 3 key areas where folly inevitably reveals itself: speech, work, and heart posture. First, the speech of the fool. Proverbs is obsessed with the power of the tongue. It understands that our words are not just sounds, they are creative or destructive forces, and the fool's mouth is a weapon of mass destruction. Proverbs 10:14 says, "The mouth of a fool brings ruin near." How? The fool's speech is often characterized by sheer quantity. Proverbs 10:19 warns, "When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent." The fool loves the sound of their own voice. They speak quickly, thoughtlessly, and dominate conversations. They feel the need to offer an opinion on everything, whether they are informed or not. This torrent of words inevitably leads to sin, exaggerations, misrepresentations, and foolish commitments. Furthermore, the fool's speech is a tool for division. They engage in slander and gossip, which Proverbs 16:28 says separates close friends. They use their words to tear others down, to make themselves look better by comparison, and to sow discord. They speak rashly and harshly. Proverbs 12:18 paints a vivid picture. "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts. The fool's words wound, pierce, and leave lasting scars on relationships." Second, let's examine the fool's approach to work and wealth. The path of folly is paved with laziness and a desire for instant gratification. Proverbs 10:4 states it bluntly. "A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich." The fool despises the process. They want the prize without running the race. They look for shortcuts, get-rich-quick schemes, and ways to do the minimum amount of work for the maximum reward. Proverbs 14:23 says, "In all toil there is profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." The fool is a great talker. They have big dreams, elaborate plans, and fantastic ideas, but they lack the discipline and diligence to follow through. Their life is characterized by mere talk. They would rather complain about their circumstances than do the hard, consistent work required to change them. This attitude doesn't just lead to financial poverty, it leads to a poverty of character and skill. Third, and most foundational, is the heart posture of the fool. All of these external behaviors, the destructive speech, the lazy approach to work, spring from one central root: pride. Proverbs 12:15 is the ultimate diagnosis. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. This is the core of it. The fool cannot be told anything. They are their own ultimate authority. When confronted with their mistakes, they become defensive. When offered correction, they become angry. When given wisdom, they despise it. Proverbs 1:7 told us that fools despise wisdom and instruction. Why? Because to accept instruction is to admit that you are not the smartest person in the room. It requires humility, and the fool is pathologically allergic to humility. Their pride makes them unteachable, therefore they are doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. They blame their problems on everyone else: their boss, their spouse, the government, their circumstances, never taking personal responsibility. They are trapped in a prison of their own making, and their pride is the guard that holds the key, refusing to unlock the door. So, take a moment for a courageous self-inventory. How do you speak? Are your words building up or tearing down? How do you work? Are you diligent and full of integrity, or are you looking for the easy way out? And most importantly, how do you respond to correction? Is your heart open and teachable, or is it rigid with pride? Recognizing these patterns of folly is the first painful but necessary step toward choosing a different path. Now that we have seen the bleak landscape of this road, what does the alternative look like? Let's turn our attention to the other path, the bright, clear, and life-giving path of wisdom. We have walked down the path of the fool and seen the clear warning signs: a destructive tongue, a lazy hand, and a prideful heart. It is a path that, though it may seem easy and gratifying in the moment, leads inevitably to ruin. But God, in His grace, does not just warn us about the wrong path. He illuminates the right one. The book of Proverbs provides a detailed blueprint for the path of wisdom, showing us what it looks like in the exact same areas of life. Let's contrast the fool with the wise, starting with the speech of the wise. If the fool's words are like sword thrusts, Proverbs 12:18 gives us the beautiful alternative, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Think about that. Your words have the capacity to be medicinal. They can soothe anxiety, mend broken relationships, and bring encouragement to a weary soul. How is this possible? Because the wise person, unlike the fool, thinks before they speak. Proverbs 15:28 says, "The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things." The wise person understands the weight and power of their words. They don't just react. They consider, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Their lips are restrained, as Proverbs 10:19 advises, which means their words, when they are spoken, carry more weight and value. They speak with truthfulness and grace, building trust and fostering unity. Their speech is a constructive force, building people up rather than tearing them down. Next, consider the wise person's approach to work and wealth. Where the fool is lazy and seeks shortcuts, the wise person embraces diligence. We already saw in Proverbs 10:4 that the hand of the diligent makes rich, but this is about so much more than just money. Diligence is a character trait that honors God and builds a life of stability and integrity. The wise person understands the principle of sowing and reaping. They do the hard, often unseen work today, knowing that it will bear fruit tomorrow. Proverbs 12:11 says, "Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense." The wise person works their land. They focus on their own responsibilities with faithfulness and excellence. The fool follows worthless pursuits, chasing fantasies, easy money, and fleeting pleasures. The wise person builds their life brick by brick. With integrity, they are trustworthy, reliable, and they finish what they start. The diligence earns them not just provision, but respect. Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men." A life of wise, diligent work leads to a life of honor and influence. Finally, and most crucially, we must look at the heart posture of the wise. If the root of folly is pride, the root of wisdom is humility. If the root of folly is pride, the root of wisdom is humility. We return to the fool's diagnosis in Proverbs 12:15, but this time we see the contrast. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. The wise person has a fundamental openness to learning. They actively seek out counsel and are willing to be corrected. They understand that they do not have all the answers. Proverbs 19:20 says, "Listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future." They are willing to endure the temporary discomfort of being wrong in order to gain the long-term benefit of being wise. Now, this humility allows them to grow, adapt, and avoid repeating mistakes. While the fool is trapped in a cycle of self-deception, the wise person is on an upward spiral of continuous improvement. They learn from their own failures, from the wisdom of others, and most importantly, from the instruction of God. Proverbs 10:8 says, "The wise of heart accepts commands. Their humility before God makes them receptive to His guidance, which is the ultimate source of all wisdom." So the contrast could not be clearer. Two different ways of speaking, two different ways of working, two different heart postures, a path of pride leading to ruin and a path of humility leading to life. But what is the final destination? What does the house built by wisdom look like compared to the pile of rubble left by the fool? The final outcomes are as different as night and day. We have walked two very different paths. We've examined the words, the work ethic, and the heart posture of both the fool and the wise person. We've seen that one path is marked by pride, laziness, and destructive speech, while the other is paved with humility, diligence, and healing words. Now, we arrive at the final destination. The book of Proverbs is intensely practical. It's not just interested in the journey, it's focused on the outcome. It tells us in no uncertain terms where each of these paths ultimately leads. The contrast between these two destinations is the most powerful motivation to choose the path of wisdom today. First, let's look at the final state of the fool. The fool's life, built on the shifting sands of ego and instant gratification, cannot withstand the storms of life. Proverbs 14:1 gives us this stark image. The wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down. The fool is an agent of their own destruction. Through their rash decisions, broken relationships, and lack of foresight, they personally dismantle any chance of a stable, secure life. Their end is chaos and ruin. Proverbs 10:29 puts it this way: "The way of the Lord is a stronghold to the blameless, but destruction to evildoers." The very path that is a fortress to the wise becomes a path of destruction for the fool. Now, contrast this with the destination of the wise person who has humbly and diligently built their life on the rock of God's truth, creates a structure that lasts. Their house is a life of stability, security, and peace. They have financial provision, strong relationships built on trust, and a clear conscience before God. Proverbs 10:25 says, "When the tempest passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation." The wise person doesn't just survive the storms of life, they become an unshakable foundation. The ultimate outcome for the wise is described with one of the most beautiful metaphors in all of Scripture: life itself. Proverbs 11:30 says, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life." A life lived in wisdom doesn't just benefit the individual, it becomes a source of nourishment, shade, and life for everyone around them. For their integrity, their kindness, their sound counsel, it all becomes a life-giving force in their family, their community, and their church. So the choice before us is clear. It is the choice between a self-destructing ruin and a well-built house. It is the choice between being a broken, withered branch and being a flourishing tree of life. It is the choice between shame and honor, chaos and peace, destruction and a strong tower. Proverbs 18:10 promises, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs into it and is safe." This is the final destination of the wise, safe and secure in the very character and presence of God. This journey through Proverbs is not just an intellectual exercise, it is a call to action. It is a call to examine your own path and to make a conscious choice today to walk in wisdom. If this deep dive into God's Word has been helpful or challenging for you, I invite you to become part of the Biblical Wisdom SP community. Please click the subscribe button to join us for more studies like this. Give this video a like. It is a powerful way to help the algorithm share this message with others who need to hear it. And please leave a comment below. What is one small step you can take this week to walk more wisely? As we close, let's remember this. You are a builder. Every day, with every decision, you are either building or demolishing. With every word, you are laying a stone of healing or a stone of ruin. With every action, you are demonstrating the humility of the wise or the pride of the fool. The good news is that it is never too late to change paths. It is never too late to stop tearing down and start building. The choice begins with humility. It begins with turning away from our own flawed wisdom and turning toward the perfect, life-giving wisdom of God. It begins with the prayer of a wise heart. God, teach me your way. I accept your instruction. May you have the courage to examine your path, the humility to choose the right one, and the diligence to walk in it all the days of your life. For the path of the wise is a path of light, shining ever brighter until the full light of day. To continue your journey, I'll let YouTube recommend the next video for you right here on the end screen. It's a great way to find the next piece of wisdom for your path. Thank you for joining us on Biblical Wisdom SP. Be blessed and walk in His wisdom.